Hello there and a warm welcome to this special broadcast of Africa Tonight. What is happening in Zimbabwe right now is making waves, not just in Africa but globally as well. Relentless protests, unwavering commitment to bring about a change and withstanding the wrath of tear gas, water cannons and buttons. Zimbabwe is clearly witnessing a turning point in its history. The country has seen 3 decades of Zanu PF rule. Now, with the weekly protests and the way the country is bursting at its seams, it is clear that the common people are demanding a change of guard.
Yes, of course, and it's not just that with Zimbabwe, about political change, the socio-economic instability, the return of the bond notes and the crackdown on freedom of expression are some of the many concerns that the present-day Zimbabwe shares with the world. In its quest to make the voices heard, the common man has taken to the streets, and then there is Mugabe administration. Many would say the government is stifling the voices, but for a government to run, there must be order.
Indeed, Nandi, and to discuss some of these issues and whether the protests are a sign of changing times in Zimbabwe or are they just a dethroning tactic, we have an eminent panel of guests with us tonight. Let me take this opportunity to introduce you to some of them. We have Mr. Life Mapeture, he's the Secretary for Education in Zimbabwe. We also have Mr. Asa Lumumba, he is the President for Viva Zimbabwe Party. Also joining us is a businessman, Mr. Mutumwa Mawere, and also from the PDP, we have Mr. Lovemore Peter Chukucha. From Ideal Zimbabwe Party, we have Tinashe Jonas.
Yes, and on the phone line we also have Kennedy Mandaza, Chairman of Zanu PF District Chairperson, and Jealous Mawarire, Spokesperson, Zimbabwe People First Party, and also Pindai Dube, who is an ANN7 correspondent in Harare. Thank you so much to our studio guests for joining us today.
And of course, last but not least, Mr. Zach Njago from the MDCT is in studio with us as well. Let's get the ball rolling. The protests in Harare today, I'll start with you, Mr. Mapeture. There's a cry from opposition parties coming together and speaking in one voice, saying there's a need for political reform, electoral reform rather, in Zimbabwe. What is wrong with the electoral process that we have in place at the moment?
First of all, on behalf of Zanu PF South Africa, we want to apologize to many Zimbabweans who have lost their property during the yesterday demonstrations. We are also surprised with what is actually happening. Zimbabwe's got a democratic system. We've got a democratically elected government which is in power and which has got a mandate up to 2018. And if the opposition parties amalgamate together and decide to dethrone a democratically elected government, it's wrong at the moment in time, because Robert Mugabe's administration still have got 2 more years to finish its mandate, which it was given by the people of Zimbabwe. So we are really surprised as Zanu PF what's actually happening.
Now, it's interesting that you say that. Why is the government so worked up on a petition, though?
You may come again?
The petition, when the Zimbabweans marched to the Home Affairs, they wanted to hand in a petition. Why is the government so worked up on the petition for reform?
When the demonstrators were going to the Ministry of Home Affairs, they started destroying some innocent people's properties. They started burning, what do you call these, some flea markets along the way. And definitely when something like that is happening, the police have to protect the innocent masses. So that's what actually happening. Zimbabwean government is free to receive any petition because even the government of Robert Mugabe he has actually written a number of petitions to the United Nations to remove sanctions that was imposed upon Zimbabwean people. So the Zimbabwean government is not afraid of petitions. If they are properly done, we've got systems, we've got protocols which we need things to be done. If you break them, then you really have to meet the
And speaking of protocol, Mr. Chukucha, I understand that this march, this protest today, was a legal protest, but it was met with heavy-handed police, and we saw the violence that erupted on the streets of Harare today. Of course, the Zanu PF says you're trying to overthrow a constitutionally elected government. Is this what you're trying to do as the opposition parties?
Well, for correction purposes, I'm Mr. Jonas.
Yes, Mr. Jonas.
Oh, okay.
All right, yeah, what is happening in Zimbabwe is that the government has been in power for so long to the point that now they forget to be accountable to the people. So the demonstration was approved by the High Court at 11 a.m. when yesterday the police had come up with the, excuses to deny the democratic rights of the opposition parties or of Zimbabweans. And still, after the High Court had approved the demonstration, the police were still not wanting to understand. So the clashes, they create a chaos so that next time they would, deny another demonstration basing on violence. But when it's actually the police who provokes the people who are peaceful, who doesn't have weapons. So it's a strategy to actually silence the citizens.
Now, I'm going to go to our other guests in studio, Mr. Mutumwa Mawere. Mr. Mutumwa, could you tell us, this is a very interesting fact, the fact that there was a court order that the people could march and they can go ahead, but yet the police are the ones that seem to be in the wrong, as they were instructed not to obstruct and not to interfere with the march, and that's exactly what they did.
I think when you look at Zimbabwe today, there are many people who may not actually understand what the problem is. You have a government that was elected and that is running its term. There are people who want to remove it. And instead of going or waiting for the elections, they would want to change the government through electoral reforms or through demonstrations, whatever it is. Some people have flags, some people are just frustrated.
But do you understand that the people are very frustrated? The people have had enough, and I guess they suppose that 2018 is a bit too far for them when their most basic needs are not being met, and the government isn't doing anything at this point in time.
But imagine even this, the title of this program is Anti-Mugabe. Mugabe is just one small guy in Zimbabwe. His head cannot contain the aspirations of 14 million people. Yet we talk about Mugabe as Mugabe is equal to Zimbabwe. Mugabe is a prisoner. He has been a prisoner for 36 years in State House. He is not capable of knowing whether it's raining in Masvingo when he's in Harare. He's just an ordinary human being that we are now glorifying, coming on studio to talk about one man, demonstrating against one man. When you unmask all these demonstrations, they're only talking about one individual. And this individual does not have the freedom that we have to walk around. And yet he's so poisonous that we spend our time, studio time, 1 hour devoting to one guy with just 2 ears. And between that is just a small brain.
Granted, obviously, Zimbabwe is more than one man, and obviously the demonstrations are not just about Mugabe. Speaking of the opposition, I want to come back to studio. Mr. Lumumba, I know I'll get your name right. We have a lot of people in the studio, so we might get the names mixed up. Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling braver as you see the citizenry, as you see the electorate, the people in Zimbabwe rising against the government as we approach the elections? 2018 is just around the corner.
No. In fact, my heart breaks because I spent 2 years of my life in Zanu PF. I listen to the brother here from Zanu PF act like he doesn't know that the people we're speaking about are not normal. Zanu PF has lost control. You don't say the police are coming to look after citizens when the same police were the very police that went and destroyed people's homes during Murambachina. When the very same police are failing to stop rape cases. You have a rise in criminal cases in Zimbabwe today. So the problem is we're here sitting talking about the result of a Zanu PF government, and we're not addressing how we ended up getting here in the first place.
And you should know this because, like you alluded to, you're from the Zanu PF
And
party.
it breaks
of course,
my heart.
Yes, it breaks your heart. But why should people trust you? People are saying you cannot and should not be the captain of the new ship that is taking Zimbabwe to a new era because you haven't come out and said, this is what we're doing in Zanu
Audrey,
PF.
which people?
This is what we have done. I'm speaking of Zimbabwe.
Which
AC.
people?
I'm speaking of Zimbabwe.
I'm Zimbabwean.
Yes, they're saying
Which
you
people?
need to tell us what you did wrong while you're in the Zanu PF party so that we can come and trust you and be able to support you as we enter this new era.
You know, let's do it this way, Audrey. I think maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not as smart as everybody else is, and people should perhaps then tell me when was the right time to get out. Is it after a month? Is it after 2 months? And when you get out, when is it the right time to say, sorry, I did something wrong? Maybe you should tell me, because it breaks and totally cracks my syllogism that it's like I can't think. You know, the only way Lumumba can think is if it's in Zanu PF. Like, I don't have any ideas of my own. I don't have any thought processes of my own. I was in Zanu PF for 2 years. I'm 27 years old. I spent the rest of my life outside of Zanu PF. Now, the very notion that we're even talking about Lumumba is what has created the Robert Mugabe. That we have sensationalized politics to a point where it's about who is in power, not what do they want to do in power. Don't talk to me about I'm not the right person to guide the ship. Then tell me who's the right person to guide the ship.
Accountability is very important. I have to go. I'll come back to you, AC.
Who is moving with the agenda
I will
of supporting
come back
young
to you.
people?
The electorate needs to hold you accountable if you want their trust. Mr. Njagu from the MDCT, I see a coalition of opposition parties. At the end of the day, who's going to lead this opposition?
This is about the opposition parties in Zimbabwe, not about a particular party. So it is up to the coalition of opposition parties to choose the right candidate. Who is going to lead that group of opposition parties to what Zimbabwe is yearning for?
Right.
Now, I'd like to take it a bit further. I'd like to actually rewind. Earlier, we mentioned that Robert Mugabe is just a person, and everyone seems to be attacking him as a person and not the party. If that is the case, then why does it seem, or why is it portrayed that he's got so much power that he can say ABC and then the police go, or ABC and then the country falls? Because it did come out that his veterans said that he was a dictator. It came out from the people that were working for him.
You know, I'm so surprised that so many people we've been benefiting from the Zanu PF system. So many people we've been enjoying the Zanu PF systems are the people who are talking most, because maybe they are frustrated. We have worked with my brother here for some time. He's talking about 2 years, but prior to those 2 years, we had S in our systems. But right now, when he's talking
I'm
like...
sorry, which systems?
The Zanu PF government is... The Zanu PF government system...
If you're going to say my name on TV, the least you could do is be explicit that which Zanu PF systems was I in.
Yes, Lumumba, were you not the chairperson of Zimbabwe Youth Council?
Is that a Zanu PF system or is that a government system?
It's a government system which is being led by a government.
I have a birth certificate, so I've got a Zanu PF birth certificate too. I have a passport. I have a Zanu PF passport too.
Maybe we should go be more specific. Let's unfold it a bit more. When you say systems, government systems or Zanu PF systems, what systems exactly? If you could just break it down.
Like going to the hospital?
You know, when we're talking of a government system, it's a system that is being controlled by an administration which is being led by Robert Mugabe from Zanu PF party. You understand? Mm-hmm. So when someone is being appointed, he's being appointed from Zanu PF courtesy.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Lovemore, what is your reaction to that?
My reaction, I would want to start to answer what the representative from Zanu PF, when he says that the government of Zimbabwe is actually surprised with what is happening in Zimbabwe. And for the past 35 years, the country was going down, and it was so evident that the situation in Zimbabwe is going downtrend. And still now, they are surprised to see people taking themselves to the streets and demonstrate against the government, and they are seeking answers And yet, the government is now coming back to people to say you are terrorizing and you are, it's a cyber terrorism, when people are actually putting out their cry to the government for answers. So the government of Zimbabwe has actually, constitutionally, they failed to uphold their offices. The center in the Zanu PF office can no longer hold. So they really know, even my brother who is sitting there, they actually really know that Zanu PF have failed. Even the other leaders of Zanu PF, they actually really know that they have totally failed to hold the nation. They have actually failed to address the issue of social contract. So for now, they have run out of solutions, and they are trying to narrate constitutional laws to people, because many people, they do not understand how to address issues. For instance, the situation which is happening in Zimbabwe right now, we as people, we have a right to confront the government and say, constitutionally, you have actually failed and to uphold the office, and you need to step down. This is the solution that we have right now that we can put forward so that we can address going forward. Because what I'm seeing right now is it's a thing that is going to cause more bloodshed in a few time to come.
Mr. Chikucha, your party has been quoted as saying that Zimbabwe is on the verge of a transition. In fact, the president of your party, Tendai Biti, made a clarion call to all the democratic forces in Zimbabwe to say we need to all come together and give President, I was going to say Jacob Zuma, President Mugabe 30 days to leave office. Now, you speak of, keeping in line with the constitution of the country. Is that constitutional?
That's really constitutional. In PDP, we believe in leadership of inclusion, and we need to ask all political parties and all democratic forces to come together, to put our minds together, and we come with a solution. We don't have leadership of exclusion. We need to include everyone in the national dialogue, so that we can come up with one solution that will bring change without causing bloodshed and people losing their lives. So this is, our president was calling people to converge and to put their minds together to come up with one solution, and to come up with ideas that will actually remove the government that they have dismally failed. Constitutionally, they dismally failed.
Now, I'd like to go to Mr. Walter from PDP. One of the things that has struck a chord in my nerve is the things that, or rather a quotation from Mr. Mugabe saying violent opposition groups engaging in violence should understand that they're fighting for foreign forces that have left people suffering after removing democratically elected governments. Do you think Zimbabweans would see it that way?
Look, Mugabe's narrative has always been that we can't think. Every time we say something, we are either being fed by foreign nationals or foreign powers, or we represent an agenda which is anti-Zimbabwe. We understand Mugabe's thinking. From 1980 to now, he did not believe in a democratic change. Mugabe wanted a one-party state. We know that. And as such, whenever there are opposition forces, he sees them as enemies of the state. And as a result, the Zanu PF system has reproduced that thinking, that anybody who opposes is an enemy of the state. So we understand that. So these spontaneous demonstrations that are happening now, they are seen as anti-state demonstrations. Yet, these are just expressions of people who have a constitutional right to demand answers for certain things that are not happening in Zimbabwe. We know that Mugabe is not somebody who can be accountable to anybody. He behaves as if he's outside the Constitution. He behaves as if he's bigger than the Constitution. So as a result, those statements from Mugabe are actually they represent what Zanu PF stands for. Zanu PF stands for actually excluding everybody. If you listen to this young man who is representing Zanu PF today in studio, he says that there is a Zanu PF system which made people eat, which made people benefit. they only run the country for the benefit of Zanu PF, not for the benefit of Zimbabweans. So that is the thinking in Zanu PF. That is the toxic thinking that we have inherited. And that is the thinking that must be sterilized. When Tendai Biti, our president, actually said that we must coalesce and come up with a national transitional authority, we know that it is not provided for in the constitution. But we know that the circumstances that are prevailing in Zimbabwe at the moment, they are almost similar to the situation which was obtaining in 2008. We are gravitating towards that stage. And what did we do? We had a situation where we came up with the GNU, but we had to make constitutional changes to allow for that. If it means that we need to do that again, then so be it, because we need to sterilize state institutions. Because as it is now, you realize that all these state institutions, they are behaving as if the people who are demonstrating are not Zimbabweans. The brutalization that we see today, it is just traumatic. It is just terrible. So we know that it is only happening because the state institutions that are supposed to safeguard democracy have been hopelessly captured.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you to keep that idea as we do have to move on to another guest. We're joined by Kennedy Mandaza from the Zanu PF district. Thank you for joining us on the phone line. One of the things that did stand out as well is hashtag this flag called for protesters not to be violent. Do you think that they were provoked? Because it seems that way.
Thank you so much for including me in the debate today. Hashtag this flag, from what we have heard from the narration that they've been giving all along, there are narrations that suggest that the demonstrations and anything else that they suggest in their narrations over the WhatsApp or even on the video are peaceful demonstrations that they would want to carry out. But what has happened so far is that each time we have had demonstrations in Zimbabwe, they have not turned out to be as peaceful as we would have loved them to be. Because demonstrations, like we have said all along, they are provided for in the Constitution. And it is very clear in the Constitution what it says. It says that the demonstrations are allowed for as long as they are peaceful. We
Demonstrations are allowed for as long as they're peaceful, but Mr. Mandaza, I have to stress, the pictures are showing that the police are the ones with the batons and the ones with the tear gas and the ones with the cannons and the ones that are attacking the demonstrators. It doesn't seem that it's the other way around. They're marching with flags, they're marching in arms, but yet it turns violent.
For the policeman has what he is supposed to be having each time he goes out to work. He has his tools that he is supposed to have.
But my question is, were they provoked, Mr. Mandaza? My question is, were they provoked?
Ordinarily, the police cannot just attack people when they have not been provoked. There is an element of provocation that is taking place. Other than that, the other area that where people are possibly attacked at times is when they go out to demonstrate when they've not been given that permission to do so. Like, let's say, for example, today, the demonstration that was supposed to take place. The court gave the people the permission to go and march. It is in their constitution, the courts gave them the right to go and march, but it was interjected by the police. According to the High Court order that was given today, the demonstrations were supposed to start from 12 until 4 p.m. And as you are all aware, the demonstrations by 8, the demonstrators had already started congregating. And that was not part of the deal or what has already been given by the High Court. And as a result, the policemen had to take watch in order to make sure that they protect even those that were not participating in the demonstration. And it is provided for that they have to do that which they are expected to do.
Mr. Mandaza, we'll have to ask you to stay on the line as we have to bring the conversation back to studio. Mr. Maweda, this question is for you. The constitutional body that is mandated with the responsibility of holding elections in Zimbabwe is facing challenges at the moment, financial challenges. Now, with all these reforms that we saw, this was the objective of today's protest, electoral reforms. Is it feasible for them to actually be on the ground and make sure that all these things are implemented? Also very important, the diaspora vote. Is that possible?
I think When you look at Zimbabwe, probably our understanding of what the post-colonial state should be is defective. Because even after the event of an election, the losers want to continue to agitate for a new election or a change of the same government that they've put in. Instead of us looking at what is it that we need a government for, we actually believe that a government can solve problems. So every day we are looking for a perfect government, for a little messiah who can come in either through electoral reforms, through an imagined election. And when the totality of all these things don't produce food on the table, we have critical problems of poverty, unemployment, inequality, just people trying to get by. What do we spend our time doing? Infiltrating our peaceful minds with this man called Mugabe. And what he's thinking or not thinking, whether the electoral board is doing this or that. Imagine these political parties, everyone is mushrooming with the president. And all of them, they want a Zimbabwe where they are going to be president. So whether they come as coalition and the demonstrations, you still have this problem called the big man. That big man is the problem we face. They assume that Mugabe is a big man, misunderstand that Mugabe is of little relevance to poverty. If it was Mugabe who was a problem, you could say, let's find something to remove the man. It's like the poor in the valley who are looking up. If they removed all the rich people, they will still be poor in the valley. Anger is not cured by elections or electoral reforms. And in between elections, there's life. But this is the unusual country called Zimbabwe, where in between elections, everybody's forming parties. And at the end of the day, the most popular document in Zimbabwe today is a passport.
Mr. Mawarira, please hold on to, sorry, Mr. Mutuma Mawarira, hold on to that thought. We have Mr. Jealous Mawarira on the phone line. He's the spokesperson for Zimbabwe People First Party. Mr. Mawarira, thank you so much for joining us. What were you hoping to achieve with the protests that we saw happening in Harare today with the request for electoral reforms? What exactly do you want to see changing?
I think, Audrey, I would do injustice if I don't respond to what Mr. Mawarira is saying.
Please go ahead.
Because Mr. Mawarira is trying to portray a Zimbabwe or a Mugabe who is not the president of Zimbabwe. A Mugabe who is not the one who constituted the government that is in power today. Mugabe is not a simple man. Mugabe is a commander-in-chief of the defense forces. Mugabe is...
We seem to have lost that line. We'll try and get a hold of Mr. Mawarira again from the Zimbabwe People First Party. Coming back to a studio, let me ask AC this time. What political reforms are you looking for, electoral reforms? I know you're very passionate about the youth, you being a youth yourself. What kind of education needs to be on the ground at this point?
It's a couple of things. Look, the first thing we must understand is it's not a question of what are we fighting against. This is where I agree with Mr. Mawarira. In fact, to an extent, this is where I even agree with Zanu PF. Zanu PF know that everything we're doing is not going to produce the intended result. So it's not a question of what are we fighting against. It's a question of what are we fighting for? What is it that we want to see? What are we really saying when we go on the street? We're not saying we don't want something. We're saying we want something. And what is that something? And so what do we have to do to get to it?
What is
now,
something?
What everyone is looking for is their version of a good life. Now, your version of a good life might be to keep your job. Somebody else's version of a good life is to take their family to good school. Somebody else's version is to take their family to the hospital when they get sick. Whatever your version of a good life, you're looking for a country that gives you space to be able to chase after that. So the place where you must begin, why electoral reform is important, is it's important to young people in order for them to have space to participate. The rules of the game go that if you want to play in the game, you must be a registered voter. So that's where the game has got to begin. Young people don't actually need to go on the street. If we took all that energy that we spent going onto the street, I've got 54 men who got arrested today, my men, who got arrested and are sleeping in cells tonight. If they had taken all of that energy and gone to register that, expended that energy registering to vote and become registered voters, now you are in the game. Because the trouble is, let's assume today had been successful and you had gone ahead and marched. It was going to be equals nothing.
Right. AC, I'm going to have to ask you to hold on to your thought as well. Mr. Maurire is back on the phone line. Mr. Maurire, you were making a point, I think, responding to what Mr. Mutumwa Mawere had commented on earlier. You can go ahead.
I was saying Mugabe is the head of state. Mugabe is responsible for the government that he put in place. So if that government fails to deliver, he is the one who is responsible. You can even see that in football. If a football team doesn't deliver, the coach is fired. He is the one who is responsible for setting out the 11 players on the ground. So that's the same with setting up a government. And what we are demonstrating for is a change of government. The difference today between South and North Korea are the systems of governance. In the North, there is a government that is authoritarian, a government that is extractive, a government that does not provide a level playing field for people to invest and to pursue their lives in a free manner. That's what we are fighting for. We are saying this government has failed to deliver. And we are fighting for the right to constitutionally change this government. We are saying the social contract is broken down because governments are set up in order to deliver to things that people expect. There is what is called a social contract. And whenever that social contract has broken down, the citizens have a right to withdraw the mandate.
Mr. Maurire, I'm going to have to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Asa Lumumba here in studio. Your party is led by the former Vice President Joyce Mujuru. Again, why should the electorate trust you? Why should you be the leaders of this new ship that is trying to see Zimbabwe become a better country? Have you accounted for all the wrongdoings that you did while you were in the Zanu PF party that you speak so ill of?
I think the misconception is that Zanu PF is a homogeneous entity. Zanu PF is full of people with different ideas. And if you read, those who are in Zimbabwe, who read the Herald of 15 August, they could testify that the Herald, in trying to denigrate the work that Joyce Mujuru has been doing in Zanu PF, they accused her of being a moderate. They accused her of extending a hand to the opposition political parties. And that makes her a different kind of a politician. She's a unifier, and you will find some good apples within the basket called the Zanu PF. It's not everyone who has been in Zanu PF who is bad. And even if you look at people like Morgan Tsvangirai, at one point in time, they were in Zanu PF, and they left Zanu PF. So the issue is not about looking at whether someone has been in Zanu PF or not, but the issue is to look at...
But that is the issue, though, Mr. Maurire. Zanu PF seems to be the enemy of the people on the ground.
And fighting for the rights of the people.
Right, I'll have to ask you to hold it there. I understand we have a reporter on the ground.
Yes, we do. But before we go to the report, I'd like a response from Mr. More Life. They spoke about good life and they spoke about a level playing ground and what the Zimbabweans want. What is your comment on that?
You know, it's so surprising when a government administration is in power. Do you think they would want its people to suffer? The Zanu PF government is trying its best to fulfill its promises, the promises that we've promised the people before the 2013 election. We are still fighting to achieve those promises. But when there are certain circumstances beyond our control, we can't kill ourselves. We would want to unite with everyone to make Zimbabwe work again. Mugabe is not trying to kill his children. No, he's also losing sleep.
So what is he trying to do exactly?
He is trying to unite everyone to
But
work towards the development of Zimbabwe.
It seems he's united everyone, but under the wrong header, if I can say it that way, because everyone seems to be united against the very person who's trying to help them.
And exactly how is he uniting the people of Zimbabwe if, you know, when people are trying to speak to him and hold constitutional mass protests and trying to engage in a dialogue with the government, and what they see in response is violence. We see tear gas, water cannons.
Sorry, I'm going to add to that one. I'm not trying to attack.
Let me answer Audrey first. You know, Audrey, I don't think the ZRP would just come from their camps and start to attack people. There is something that happens along the way which will force the police to kind of stop the demonstrators. Prior to the demonstrations, in the social media, they were sending information that all police officers in uniform were going to kill you, all the soldiers, you know, something like that. The police were threatened prior to the demonstrations. But the police, fine, they were just doing their duties. Then the protesters started attacking ordinary people's shops.
Well, that's not the footage that we have. I think it has been documented internationally where we've seen police violence, naked police violence on the ground on citizens that are unarmed. But we'll come back to that point. I understand we have to go somewhere else now.
Yes, we will come back to your point. We're on Pindai Dube, who's an ANN7 correspondent who was on the ground today in Zimbabwe. Thank you for joining us, Pindai. Could you please give us a bit of detail as to what happened today?
Thanks a lot, Nandi. The situation, we are still in the city center, and it's a bit calm right now. Although in the afternoon, there were serious clashes between police and the protesters. People, they were engaged in running battles with the police since morning, and roads were barricaded, water cannons were spraying water, tear gas were everywhere, and as you saw the visuals, there were beatings even at the courts. So the running battles ended around 6 o'clock, and now the situation is a bit calm.
Now, one of the things that was mentioned in studio is that the police were doing their job and the protesters somehow also provoked them. How did you see it unfold today?
Initially, what happened, Nandi, is that the NERA, which was supposed to conduct the demonstrations, these are the political parties from the different political parties, they had gone to court to seek an order to go ahead with the protest, but the order was given late, and the protesters were already gathered, and they told the police clearly that they are waiting for this clearance and they won't do anything. But the police started beating them and throwing tear gas, and this went into a rampage, and people were retaliating. And even the agricultural show, the Harare agricultural show, was also affected. Roads were barricaded, the Samora Machel Road, Rotten Road. So the situation was quite deadly.
So why did they start to beat, or why did they start to throw the tear gas? What was the very reason? Because it seems like you said that they were just waiting there to do what they came to do, but all of a sudden things just started going chaotic.
The police were just going around and telling these people to go away. You know, they had gathered at the Freedom Square just behind the Sheraton in Harare, and they were saying they are waiting for this court order, but police approached them with water cannons and tear gas, and that's when the whole chaos started.
So would you say that the citizens sort of were a bit fearful because they saw the water cannons, they saw all these things, and they sort of were a fear sort of brought about in them?
No, what we saw is that these human rights activists and also the opposition political parties leaders, they were trying to explain to the police that they are waiting for a court order, but police couldn't take it, and they said they should disperse immediately.
Well, thank you. We do have to come back to studio with our guests here, Mr. Zach Njagu. Thank you for also waiting to give your bit there. What would you say, how would you feel about the unfoldings of today based on what Mr. Pindai said?
Actually, what is happening in Zimbabwe is we are having a government which is presiding over a country illegally. As MDC, in 2013, after our elections, we told the world that the elections were rigged. And what we are seeing now are the fruits of rigging an election. You can rig elections, which is about counting numbers and stuff, but you cannot rig running the economy. You cannot rig giving people a good life. You cannot rig almost everything. You can only rig the election. So now Zanu PF is stranded. So all what they are trying to do is they are trying to make sure that they put fear in the people of Zimbabwe so that they should keep quiet. Now it's quite unfortunate that where we are as Zimbabweans now is we cannot keep quiet because there's nothing which we have which can make us keep quiet. There's no jobs to make us keep quiet. There is no medication in the hospitals to make us have that life. So we have got actually at this point nothing to lose. All what we are asking the government to do is, yes, you rigged the election. Now, can you be accountable to that election which you stole from the Zimbabweans? You've got nothing to offer. Can you please come and surrender the Zimbabwe which you stole in 2013 to the rightful owners, which are Zimbabweans? That is all what we are asking for from Zanu PF.
Coming back to this part of the studio, Mr. Jonas, Ideal Zimbabwe Party, what's the ideal Zimbabwe that you're looking at?
The ideal Zimbabwe is a Zimbabwe that has got universal democracy principles. In Zimbabwe, we've got democracy which is following a template of Zanu PF. In Zanu PF democracy, we have got a big debate in South Africa, case of ANN7. When this debate was supposed to be happening in Harare under Zimbabwe Broadcast Corporation. But Zanu PF is flying and my brother is here squeezing the space to campaign in South Africa when we were supposed to be, me and you, in Zimbabwe. ZBC has become a Zanu PF broadcaster to a point that you are not interested in campaigning in ZBC because you know that even your own kids are not watching ZBC. Now you should run and squeeze yourself besides opposition parties in South Africa when you close all the spaces in Zimbabwe. You should be ashamed, Zanu PF. And then Pastor Mawarire of this flag was invited by, because we have got independent radio station in Zimbabwe, independence in Zanu PF, but they are given to Zanu PF bootlickers. So they are independent radio stations. He was invited, it's called ZFM, and then to talk on the platform. And then the owner of the radio station, Superman Wanzela, who is the minister of communications, who is now internationally infamous because of the computer bill, social network bill, confronted him, and Ruveneko, the presenter, was taken off air until now.
Right, let's give a chance for Mr. Mapituri to respond. Apparently the media environment, especially the electronic media, remains a field that is still controlled by the Zanu PF. Your response to that?
First of all, I want to take his sentiments as a compliment. We are coming to South Africa media. As Zanu PF, we are so proud to have took part in the liberation of our neighbor South Africa. So we are free to come and use the South African resources.
Do we have these kinds of conversations and debates on the national broadcaster in Zimbabwe?
Yes.
It seems a bit reluctant, your answer.
No. All along I
yes,
was
you
reluctant.
do.
No, all along I was reluctant. I was reluctant. Yes, ZBC, prior to elections, it usually invites opposition members to come and debate.
But
to
can
tell
you
us
honestly
about
say they are as free to say what's on their mind as they are right now?
Oh yes, they say whatever they want. MDC is one of the most free party to say whatever they want. They say whatever they want.
But isn't that a bit ironic because now Pastor Mawarire was trialed for treason for expressing his views on WhatsApp?
When was Pastor Mawarire tried for, okay, he was tried for treason. Was he chased out of Zimbabwe? Pastor Mawarire.
He was not chased out of Zimbabwe,
Yes.
but the fact that he was able to speak out on social media, it got him into a lot of hot water.
Your President Mugabe announced at the Heroes Eka to say Mawarire should stay where you are funded. Mugabe doesn't have the right to talk about being Zimbabwean on behalf of Zimbabweans. That's the mentality which is wrong.
Listen, Mugabe is just like you, Mugabe is just like me. He is a Zimbabwean who's free to say whatever
Are
he
you proud
wants.
to represent the Zanu PF here?
Yes, I'm proud. That's why I'm here. If I wasn't proud, I wasn't going to come here. I wasn't going to waste my time coming here. I have used lots of money to travel, to come to...
You don't need to campaign Zanu PF people. You need
And
votes.
speaking of Zanu PF, gentlemen, please give me a moment.
I'm not campaigning
Zanu
for
PF needs
Zanu
votes.
Yes, Mr.
Zanu PF is in power.
Mapetshure,
I'm
we
not
have...
campaigning for it.
That's fine. We've seen the factions within the Zanu PF party, and it appears the president himself seems to have aligned himself with a certain, with the other faction of the party. Do you think as a leader that's perhaps, doesn't it fan, you know, the factionalism we're seeing in Zimbabwe?
Which faction has Mugabe aligned himself to?
Well, there's two factions. We know there is the G40 and there is the Lacoste, and he seems to have aligned himself with the G40. If anything that the First Lady has said is anything to go by.
First of all, let me tell you one other thing. The Lacoste and the G40 issue is something that has been propped up by the social media. Okay, fine. In any organization like a revolutionary organization like Zanu PF, there are dynamics which are in there. There are differences because we've got so many people with different views. Then the social media would try to bring in an agenda. They're trying to set a certain agenda. Those are the guys who came up with the faction status of G40 and Lacoste. But otherwise, all those people who are being said to be the leaders of those factions are refusing that they are not faction leaders.
Right, I understand we have some callers on the line. We have opened our phone lines, and if you want to be a part of the conversation, of course, you can tweet us at ANN7TV, and also details of the studio phone number should be on your screens. I understand we have a Gratitude from KwaZulu-Natal. Gratitude, your thoughts?
Hello?
Yes, Gratitude, go ahead.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. I just wanted to respond to my friend there. Is it from Zanu PF? It appears the guy is living in Iron Age or some other time, because his sentiments are sickening and very much unfortunate. Because if you look, I was just looking at our GDP as a country. Since 2006, it's not even comparable to the province where I am in South Africa, foreign land, KwaZulu-Natal. It's even way smaller than the provincial GDP of KwaZulu-Natal, compared to a country which is endowed with resources, which is endowed with a lot of human capital. And he is here in South Africa saying that Mugabe is trying to unite people. And you want to ask yourself, unite people for what? Because right now these protesters are not in some kind of a picnic. They're expressing their views, and they're being subdued. They are being subjected to brutality. They're being subjected to all sorts of brutalization, which is very much unfortunate. And he must be ashamed. He must come to terms of the reality and admit that Zanu PF is just literally brought the country to its knees. We are waiting for the burial of Zimbabwe. Thank God for South Africa, at least they're taking Zimbabweans in. And if you look in former statistics, are saying we've got about 4 million people in South Africa or more. And this should be even quite a shame to the president, to have your people run away from you. And those who are back home trying to fight for you, you're even exposing them to unprecedented brutality and torture. It's so much unfortunate.
Thank you. Gratitude, I'm going to have to cut you off. We have another caller on the line. Her name is Pretty, and she is from Joburg. Pretty, what are your comments for tonight?
My comment is from, just want to comment from that guy from Zanu PF. You know how many Zimbabweans are outside from the country? They don't have anything to say. They don't have their right to say, Mugabe will beat us. He spoiled my future. Now he's spoiling my kids' future. Where are we going to go? We're desperate. We're all over the world because of the people of Zanu PF. That guy, more life, must be ashamed of what he is saying. He's hungry. He's hungry. He didn't have anything. There are more graduates in Zimbabwe. If you go in Zimbabwe, you find them, they all over the streets. There is no job to work for them to work, but they've got degrees. So what's the use? The Zanu PF must go. We find new blood. Why can't you? Mugabe step down. He's old. Since I was born until now, I'm old. My kids are old. I don't have future in Zimbabwe. My kids, they don't have future. They educated, but they don't have anywhere to go. We don't have a right to say in Zimbabwe, we're being beaten like what we see on the TV. What's the use for him to be there in
Pretty
power?
from Johannesburg, we thank you for your input. Unfortunately, we have to give a chance to other callers. We're inundated with calls. Remember, you can join in the conversation. Give us a call or tweet us at ANN7TV. Bring the conversation back to studio. This question is for you, Mr. Mawere. The African Union and other regional bodies such as SADC, at what point do they step in and try and play a role of a mediator when we have situations like what's happening in Zimbabwe? We know that they have been criticized in the past for being apathetic or acting a bit too late, waiting for situations to get out of hand, and then they come up with some kind of a peace agreement between parties.
I think the first thing is the confusion created in this studio is one thing we must cure, I think, urgently. The government of Zimbabwe is not Zanu PF. Zimbabwe is a member state of SADC. It is Zimbabwe that is a member of the AU. That country has one president. Thank God. There are countries where you can't even recognize who the head of state is. We need to grow out of this confusion where we bring someone from Zanu PF and we assume that his government, we are preoccupied with a nullity. AU cannot intervene in a member state that is in between elections because people want to fast-track the removal of their own creature. Mugabe's power does not come from heaven. It comes from elections. There's some people who are apathetic, who don't want to vote, who don't want to register, are the very people who come and pontificate on studios and talk about change of government, regime
Mr.
change.
Mawere.
The future of Zimbabwe.
You are lying, Mr. Mawere.
I could be lying.
I think you want to do public relations to go back to do business in Zimbabwe. You ran away from Zimbabwe, Mugabe took your companies, you come here and you lie here.
I can't be dishonest.
You are the reason why Zimbabweans are suffering.
I can't be dishonest.
That nonsense reasoning. No.
My brother, don't be idealistic on stage.
You can't come here to defend Mugabe.
No, I'm not defending Mugabe.
Go and take your company back.
Even
sacrifice our lives.
He doesn't even know you're an idealist.
You're a capitalist.
No, Mugabe doesn't even know what you look like.
No, you are lying.
Mugabe
allow you to lie. We are young people. You're going to steal our future.
No.
We can't let you an old man lying into our
Okay, we're going to have to cool it down and end it. We're going to have to cut it there.
Quietly.
Mr. Tinashe, we understand that it's a very touching topic. We're going to have to move on.
Go and sleep. You go to old age and rest there.
We're going to have to cut it there. It's getting quite heated here in studio. And we're going to have to ask for Mr. Kennedy Mandaza's reaction from this debate that's going on here. See, people are very heated and passionate.
Yes, I think we need to realize that Zanu PF is just a party, and fortunately, it is the party that is in government. And one good thing about it is that Mutuma Mawere is saying the right thing, that between elections, the government that is in place should run the country up to the point when elections are supposed to be done. And at the moment, what people should be done in the opposition is to make sure that they come up with alternative policies and ideas that they think that once we get to elections, they will be able to sell those ideas to the generality of the people, so that if their policies are plausible, come the election time, then they go out there and win. But for as long as they pander now to the whims of nature and other things, then there is a possibility that they are wasting their time not crafting policies that will win them at the end of the day. As Zanu PF, we continue to work and make sure that we perfect that which we have had in the past and also being cognizant of the fact that there are things that we have not achieved over the period that we have been in power, and would want to make sure that come the next election in 2018, we sell a product that will be plausible to the people. And
Mr. Mandaza, I'm going to cut you off over there. I just need to know from you the burning question, the reasons why, for example, Mr. Mugabe hasn't really spoken about stepping down, or rather, should I say, why he is not willing to step down when he sees that his country is in the state that it's in. At the moment, I can say that he's or getting ready or gone to a conference in Kenya while this crisis is happening, and most people would expect for a president to step up and address its people. Mr. Mandaza, I think we've lost him there on the line. Let's move on. Yes, Mr. Mandaza, what is your reaction? Did you get my question there?
Yes, I did.
I think I've got a complaint.
Hold on, Mr. Tinashe, I'll get to you in a
the
moment.
president sent his security ministers to address people on what is currently going on in the country.
So many people.
Hold on, Mr. Tinashe.
There's so many, some are maybe under the camera.
Mr. Tinashe, we'll get to you and you'll get your chance to have your say. Mr. Mandaza, please complete your answer.
The president has come up with ministers, and these ministers are tasked with the responsibility of making sure that they address issues that are taking place in the country. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, the security ministers were tasked to address the issue of what is currently taking place in the country. The president has many other tasks, and one of them is to make sure that he gives direction through the ministers that he has appointed to address the issues that are currently taking place in the country.
Mr. Mandaza, thank you so much for that response. Unfortunately, I will have to cut you off there. You know, we're getting a lot of reaction from the viewers. I just want to read out a few tweets that we have gotten that at Miti Orbit says Mugabe must just do an honorable thing and resign. Some good arguments and some good debate, some panelists lying through their teeth, but overall some good tweets there coming. AC, we want to get a reaction from you before we go, as we are rounding up our debate. Your reaction and closing remarks?
Look, young people are the most affected, I think, by everything that's going on. The right way to play this game is they must get themselves registered to vote. They must understand that no one can lead them better than they can lead themselves. And we need to stop all of this, all of this TV shows talking about it, and we need to act on it. And the way we act on it is we simply should register to vote, and we should make sure we are the ones who are being voted for, and we should shape our own futures. That would be my closing remarks.
Yes, so I know you said we had a biased panelist, but we're trying to keep things as fair as possible. You got an amount of time to speak on, but you can give us your closing remarks now.
All right, my advice to Zanu PF is that the idea and the skill to arrest is good, but they should use that skill to arrest the problems in Zimbabwe. They should not apply to arrest people, because they're going to arrest everyone until they arrest themselves. So, Zanu PF, you have failed, and it's our future as young people, and our patience is running.
Clearly it has. So is our time. We have to ask a closing remarks from Mr. Chikucha. I'm sorry, Jonas, we have run out of time. Mr. Chikucha, very quickly in 15 seconds.
Tonight we were totally forgotten that we are in the studio. The thing is that we as a panel, we are talking and we need to find a solution. The problem in Zimbabwe needs a solution. And it is not about talking, or it's not about the political party, it's not about what Zanu PF is saying. It is about the solution to the present problem. If we can say the government of Zimbabwe has been elected constitutionally, but we have a problem that needs to be addressed immediately so that people will not keep on suffering. People are dying, people are suffering, and it's evident. So there is a need for National Transition Authority to come in place and arrest the situation before it escalates to a bad
Well, we're going
situation.
to have to cut it over there. Thank you so much to our panel for joining us tonight in studio and online, and especially to you, our viewers. Do continue to give us your suggestions there on ANN7 or comments, ANN7 TV, or you can say whatever is on your mind there on Twitter. But for now, it's good night.
Absolutely. Let's keep the conversation going online. For myself, Audrey Shimanda, thank you for watching.